Conversation with Dr. D. We have authentic conversations here because authenticity is truly our identity here. And on the guest room, we have very relatable and engaging conversations with our guests. And we have a phenomenal guest here. I always say phenomenal, but this one right here, he has a story, and where he's from, I would have never imagined. But I am so excited to have him on the show, and he's going to delve into what he has experienced and how he's impacting and changing a narrative in our community. I like to welcome Mr. Eddie Boyd, known as what I call him, Mr. B. Mr. B, thank you so much for coming on the guest show. I'm so glad that you obliged. I know you're busy because he has a dear heart that I love, his little son. And so I know he keeps you going, but I am so happy to have you here. I want, we just start off, and I want you to tell our guests a little bit about who Mr. Eddie Boyd is.
All right. I'm just a normal constituent that just was brought up based on community, right? By watching what was happening in my neighborhood and the things that my parents went through, and I'm kind of just mimicking the things that my parents did, the community members did, and just felt it was my duty to do. To make a long story short, my mom and dad met during the civil rights movement.
Wow. Right? Okay.
Actually, right before my parents met, my dad served in the Air Force.
Okay.
And one of the assignments was the Kennedy inauguration.
Okay.
And he heard live, ask not what you can do for your country, but what your country can
do for you.
Well, to not ask what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Right.
And that impacted him. A few months later, he ended up getting out of the military, and he joined the civil rights movement. He was from West Virginia, but his roots was in Alabama. And so a lot was going on in Alabama, so he went to Alabama. And during that moment, he met my mom.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. So they had something in common, and they marched with Dr. King. She lived my mom lived right outside of Birmingham.
Yeah.
And a lot was going on back then.
Right, was.
And their love for community resonated with each one of them. Then they ended up getting married. My mom had a scholarship to Dillard University, so they ended up migrating to New Orleans. And years later, I was born.
Okay.
But those stories of what they went through and how people were treated, just because of the color of their skin, resonated with me. And but they taught me not to hate and to love everyone despite of what they had been through. And so years later, when I became an adult, I had that love for everyone. But then fast forward, when I'm about 25 years old, something happened to me that I thought would never happen, because I thought if I presented myself in a certain way, that certain things wouldn't happen to me, and I was sadly mistaken.
Right.
Yes.
And you brought up something so profound. I love the fact that I was wondering where that Louisiana came from. You love Louisiana.
Amen.
So I see now where it has now transcended and where it is now with your family, and to know that your dad was an integral piece to the civil rights movement.
Yes.
And out of that, because you could have taken on that, and your dad could have taken on the notion of saying, I hate this, I hate. Yes. But instead, he saw an opportunity to try to unify.
Yes.
And thank God for our late, great Dr. MLK Jr., Martin Luther King Jr., yes. and how he impacted, of course, this whole nation, planet,
Amen.
But to know that your dad and your mom had a piece of that.
Yes.
And to instill that in you, and now you're taking it to different levels and different heights as to how you can move this forward. This what we call this train forward.
Yes.
And so I look at it, and your dad has a profound story as well as to what he's endured. But as a child, Mr. B, what did you see when your parents were going through this moment of being, inside the civil rights movement? What did you see out of the lens of that child that you could recollect on?
Their passion and family and wanting to make a change, despite all the things that was just happening to them, and that they didn't understand, right? But wanted to make it better, and it impacted me because as a kid, I didn't understand how you can be abused, right? Because I didn't grow up being abused.
Right.
To know that my parents were being abused and they didn't have any hate. Right. So it was a lesson that they were teaching me by their actions, not just by words. You know?
Yeah, and that's profound when you said a lesson learned. And I think that's been like the theme of all my guests here is a lesson in everything. In spite of the obstacles that were faced, head on, it turned out to be an opportunity.
Yes.
Because your parents saw an opportunity through something that we are experiencing now, hate.
Yes.
Where it has now evolved into and morphed into something even greater that we don't want to.
Yes.
But there are champions like your parents. There are champions like the Eddie Boyds that are now changing the narrative on how we should teach our children.
Yes.
And your reach expands so much in that it goes into a spoken language of love, unity, and peace.
Yes.
And so I listened to that with your parents and your lens as a child to see that, and it's just like one guest said, it leaves those breadcrumbs that your parents left. And then here it is, you're picking up that same momentum, you know. What has been in that space? What has been a scary moment for you to say, I'm doing what my dad did? How am I going to be perceived?
One of those biggest moments, fast forward to in my adult life, was when, I'm going to take it back to, I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
And my dad had a business, and one of his partners was a newspaper distributor, right? And we walked in the room, and he would always teach me how to, presence is everything, right? When you walk in the room, shake a hand, this and the other. So when I walked in this particular room, I did just as what he taught me to do.
Right.
And I went to shake a gentleman's hand, and reluctantly, the gentleman reached his hand out to me, shook my hand. I didn't think nothing of it, but when we left out of there, my dad started laughing. He said, "You understood the assignment." And I didn't understand what the assignment was. But fast forward, this gentleman had always treated my dad. He was of another race, right? He always treated my dad like inferior, right? Didn't want to do business, would talk down certain things, right? But wouldn't even shake my dad's hand. But because I did, because it was that child, that innocence, and I shook his hand, didn't look at his color or anything like that. It was a defining moment, and it made the business relationship with him, my dad, a little bit better. Right? So fast forward in my adult life, I would always remember what the assignment was that I learned, right?
Didn't understand it.
Yes, I didn't understand it. And that's one of the things my dad told me one time. I said, why does this have to happen to me? Oh, I can't remember what it was about.
Right.
And he said, you got somebody else in mind? It might be your lesson to learn.
Wow.
And I didn't understand, but it always stuck with me. And as I get older, I would add to it, it might be your lesson to teach. Wow. So sometimes we go through things and we might not understand it, might even think it's unfair, but it might be an important lesson for it to happen to you so you can share it and help others. And I think that's
deep, Mr. Boyd. Because like your dad said, it could be someone else, but it's you.
Yes.
And we ask that question when we're going through some unshaky moments in our lives. Why is this happening to me? And just the question always says, come back and reverberate. Why not you?
Absolutely.
It's a lesson learned for you, but it's a lesson that you can teach somebody else.
Yes.
And then you can add your own flavor to it, but it's a lesson that you learn. And your dad set that foundation.
Yes.
He set that foundation. And as I listen to it, you just get so excited, because you didn't. And it's like funny because, that's the new slogan now, the slang now, understood the assignment.
Yeah.
Dad said it back then, and then how it's now resonating to this era now. And so now we look at it, now you understand the assignment is much more than just me. It's something that has been a foundation as of how we did things then and how it's now coming to fruition now.
Yes.
And so now, with that being said, how have you changed, in a sense, how have you changed and developed in areas where you say, okay, my dad did this, I'm doing this. But what has been some of the fruits of your labor with that?
To see, to meet like-minded people, right?
Okay.
Like walking in that room, understanding the assignment, right? Approach things head on, right? And realize there's mostly good in this world, right? Even though we might get the agenda about something else, right? And so much so that I respect him so much that the guy that you're meeting now is more of my dad.
Okay.
My daddy, right?
All right.
So Mr. Boyd is
Mr. Boyd is in the house, right?
Because I was always impressed by how my dad wasn't even a high school graduate, right?
Wow.
He was one of the smartest men that I've ever known.
Okay.
He used to be on the airplane with Colin Powell, all these dignitaries, right? And so he just always showed me that if you believe, you can achieve anything, right? You could, whether it's, don't let socioeconomical things limit you to what you can be or the impact that you can make, right? Because I saw the impact that he made, and all the people that was willing to do whatever for him because of that genuine love for community. Him and the neighbors used to maybe when a hurricane was coming, make sure that all the drains were clear. Just simple stuff, right? But that's that community taking care of one another, you know. And I think that's the biggest thing.
That is, and that's so profound, the community. And I think that we have lost a sense of community, you know. And like you said, it was just the simple things, but the simple things turn into major things because who would have ever known, who would have had the intellect at that time? Because you said my dad didn't even have a high school diploma or nothing like that. He wasn't even graduate, but he sat in rooms that most people who have those pleasures can't even get into. And to be in those spaces, that's history in itself, Mr. B. I mean, look at that's history. And here it is, your dad was in those rooms shaping what is now what we call history. He made history. And not only did he do it for what's around him, but he did it for his son. And so you look at that and it's just like, my goodness, the little work that I think I'm doing is making a greater impact for someone else. So your dad, he set what I call a blueprint, for greatness, you know, and I'm sure that he endured, you know, and you saw that. And now here it is, you're doing the same thing, but like I said, with your own flavor on it. And so you say that, you know, those have been some opportunities for you. And how have you enhanced that though? I mean, your dad has brought you up. You're making an impact. And now you want to do more, I'm sure, you know. And on the next part of our conversation, we're going to talk about changing that narrative because you're doing a lot. You're just trying to shame and trying to act shy. But you're doing a lot. But from what, you know, your dad, what about mom? What did mom do?
Oh, mom was that teacher.
Okay.
Right? She made sure that our homework was that structure. You know, my mom and dad understood their roles, right? And some of those traditional roles. And so she taught faith, right? Structure, this and then the other. And my dad taught, the reason why I talk about my dad, because he instilled in me what a man, a father, and what, unfortunately, that some didn't have. Right. And that's kind of why I do what I do, because I realized there's a deficiency. So right out of COVID, I advocated for fathers to get in, well, parents in general to get in the building. But I realized the significance that that father figure, that male role model, the impact it can have, because I know the impact it had on my life. Right. So, but mom, you know, same stories about the civil rights movement. And you know, she was salutatorian. You know? So it was that mesh that kind of came together that made me who I am. Even, you know, my mom was a Jehovah's Witness when I was a kid, and she always made sure that I went about things respectful, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Now look at it, because you talk about your dad didn't have, but your mom had.
Yes.
It's like almost a mismatch that made a match.
Yes,
you know.
yes.
I can't wait for the next part of our conversation.
Yes.
Hey, I want you all to stay tuned for the next part of our conversation with Mr. B, and we're going to talk about how he's changing the narrative in our community. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. It's Dr. D here. I want to let you in on something. Not only am I an online talk show podcast host, I am also an author. Yes, I am an author of my very first book, Cage in a Cubicle: Spiritual Lessons. This book talks about my journey in corporate America, as well as learning the lessons along the way. Sometimes you think that being caged in a cubicle is a bad thing, but it's actually protection. And so along the way, I wrote out my lessons in a journal, and it evolved into a dissertation when I was in school, yes, but it also evolved even more so in me writing this book. So I share with you my journey as I sat in a cage in a cubicle, spiritual lessons that came along with that. And I want you all to be able to share the experiences that I went through, and perhaps you may have gone through it, or perhaps you're going through it, but it will be some spiritual lessons that you all can learn from as well. How you can purchase this book? Head over to Amazon and you can purchase the book there. Again, I thank you in advance for your support and your purchase from your girl, Dr. D, with Cage in a Cubicle: Spiritual Lessons. Welcome back to the guest room with Dr. D, where we have here authentic and relatable conversations, where we have here authenticity is truly our identity. And we have here in our guest room show today, it's Mr. Boyd, known as Mr. B, and how his parents were the foundation for what he's doing now as a change in the narrative. And Mr. Boyd has such a great story. He's doing so much in our community, and we're going to now delve into that. Mr. Boyd, you're changing the narrative. I see you with that tripod. I see you with that camera. Yes. And you are changing the narrative because you never know who's watching the stories that you're putting out there.
Absolutely.
What made you want to start changing the narrative in the community? Beyond parents, but you.
Because it's something that was needed.
Okay.
Right? And I realized I had an opportunity to do so in the past. It could have done more and wanted to be to take advantage of that opportunity.
Okay.
Right? Instead of be Debbie Downer, execute it. Right. So 10 years ago, I had a situation where my children was affected, and it was hard to deal with. Right. And actually it dealt with gun violence, and it was on both ends of the spectrum.
Wow.
One where my son ended up in prison, and another one where my daughter, just a victim, her and her 7 friends were shot. Right. Didn't even know the perpetrator. So dealing with that hurt and pain back then was something happened with my youngest daughter, and I said, I'm going to take this opportunity and form a change, even if it's picking up trash, right? To show people that I was vested. It wasn't just words, right? That I was willing to do the work, and it affected me. And I shared my story and got together with like-minded people like yourself, right? And along the journey, right? And it's building something great, Yeah.
Yes. And I love that how you said, and it still goes back to family.
Yes.
Because sometimes that's what propels us to do what we do. Like mom and dad laid the foundation, laid the blueprint. Then you having your experiences with your own children. Yes. And it's just like, okay. And your dad said, why not you?
Yes. So
here it is, why not me? And here it is, you're changing the narrative in the community and bringing an awareness. So the awareness that I see that you're bringing is, and I've studied your background, is DEI, which they try to shun. You and I go back and forth with that conversation. And you texting and we just talking about it, and how that's impacting what they're trying to take away. You can't take away history when it's already there.
Absolutely.
We live in a diverse society where everybody's inclusive to what they believe, think, but we have to matter of respect it.
Yes.
So bringing up that, and we will talk about diversity equity on this show. How have you seen that transcend DE&I? You see where they're stripping. But at the same time, you're still bringing awareness to that. That takes a bold, courageous spirit to do so. So how are you doing that?
Absolutely. We have to think about it, right? There was 400 years of bondage, right? In my brother's lifetime. He was born in 1964, so this is not too far away.
Right.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964,
right?
right? So changed, even though they have laws and all this stuff, right? It doesn't change overnight.
No.
Right? Those have to, over time, it settles in, and then you have to make up for those inequities, right?
Yeah.
And it has to be consistent. And years ago, I would realize, like I said earlier, I thought that if I conducted myself in a certain way, that I wouldn't be susceptible to certain things.
Right.
And I realized that that's not quite the case, because it could be embedded in a system or embedded in a policy that may not be written down, but might be, spoken.
Right. Right.
And it kind of happened to me in 1999, whereas I realized it started off with a racist comment, but once I was retaliated on against, and an investigation was done, I was realized it was part of a policy that they were unapologetically willing to say, hey, this is my company and this is what we can do.
Wow.
Yes.
And you shared that, and tell our guests, how did you endure that though? I mean, I know it had to be like a shock, because you like, wow, what?
Yes.
This is real, know. But how did you? I mean, what was the aha for you at that moment?
Well, it's kind of like my dad said, like, why it happened to me, like, this might be a lesson to learn. So while I was going through it, I realized it was my lesson to learn. And, I realized all the sacrifices that were made by people before me to get us here. And, that may be the linchpin to get us to the next level,
Right.
And, we just made, sometimes you have to fight in their sacrifice for anything that's worth having.
Worth having.
Yes,
worth having.
yes.
And that's profound. You said that, worth having. And I think sometimes people fight just to be fighting, without a cause, know. And when we look back in our history, we look back at those reels and film reels, and we see our ancestors, and we see our forefathers, and we see our family members, and we may not even identify it during those clips, and we see that was nothing but diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because you're trying to strip away human dignity, for one. And then, like you said, it doesn't matter the race and all that. They're equal. We're all equal. We all bleed. Last I checked, red blood. We're not androids running around here,
Absolutely.
right? And so, in that space, here again, the foundation. Dad saw something, wanted to make a change, made a change. Mom was the strength and the structure. And now you come along and you're doing that same thing, where now you see it from a different lens that is much broader than what Dad saw. Because now things have shifted into a whole different perspective. And for you, this is the kicker. You experienced it firsthand.
Yes. Amen. Yes.
You experienced it firsthand, but he endured it as well.
Yes.
So now that has now been like, now that's given me even more reason to do what I do.
Absolutely.
And when I see that, when you drop those clippings and you say, Dr. D, I'm just really just trying to change the narrative and bring a positive awareness without losing the essence of reality.
Absolutely.
We know reality is there.
Yes.
But who wants to keep turning on something that's negative all the time?
Yes.
And
imagery is very important.
Yes,
sometimes,
say that.
it may be bland, and we might think that you have to pick a side or this and the other, but the side of right, if that's nothing my dad said, if you're on the side of right, you never be wrong, right?
Okay, I got that. That is what got it going on. Okay.
Yes. But it's especially in education, and just in policy period, teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion, because sometimes people don't have parents or people in the community that tell them, hey, they're equal,
right?
And they have to be built up, right?
Yes.
And they can be people like us that love everybody, but given a chance, right? And not feel like they're subpar,
Yeah.
And or given a chance, right? Because going back to that employer, they had a policy. Even though I was making for the age I was doing fairly well, right? But they had a policy that not to hire any N-words.
Wow.
We'll find that out later, right? So having diversity and inclusion make sure that doesn't happen, right? And help the people that's employed and employers know, hey, it has to be on an equal setting, or else people get lost in the weeds, and it's unfortunate and it damages real lives, because then you have people that have take advantage of the people that don't have.
And you said something profound, and I tell people, chance. Give people a chance.
Absolutely.
Stop allowing the dictates of the world to give people that subpar feeling.
Yes.
Give people opportunity and chances, and you never know what can transcend from that and transpire from that, and to be able to go through what you went through and knowing there was a policy for that, we said, you for real, but that was the reality.
Absolutely.
And so I think that sometimes, people want to bring up the negative history of that, but I think, as one guest said, it may hurt your feelings, but that's the reality of it. But you as a change maker,
yes,
you're changing that, and you have those who support that change, to say, no, we can't, and like we always say in this nation, we won't go back.
yes.
Okay, we won't go back. And so we look at that and it's just like, okay, I can make a difference. And somebody gave you a chance. Dad gave you a chance. Organizations gave you a chance.
Yes.
School districts gave you a chance, and giving you those opportunities. Yes. And now you have a little one, my dear heart, who's watching daddy, make a change in this world, So, I look at that and I just want you to, I want you to share with our guests, what has been one impact that you've seen of your work so far? What has been one thing that you've seen that has really impacted, whether it's your community, school district, whatever it is?
Sometimes it's the impacting of one life.
One life.
And that happened, just one of those times, it happened yesterday.
Okay.
I saw a young lady walk across the stage that had given up. And I called the parents. Once the teacher told me the issue, I was able to play my part, play my role. The student may have known me for being in the building, but I did not know this child. But she was just as important as my own.
Right.
So seeing her walk across that stage on yesterday, that's what community is all about.
All about.
It's not just about my own.
Right.
It's about everyone, because sometimes I might need somebody else to look out for mine.
Absolutely.
And that's just things going full circle, and just seeing the change, the morale, right?
Yeah.
Change, right? And people who are more positive about our county, because we have great things going on, right?
We do. We absolutely
But it's just like the news. If you just get the negative, you kind of, you go by the last thing you hear.
Yeah, and that's how people remember the last thing.
Yes,
And I believe, and that's so profound. You never know. It just take that one.
Yes.
When you said did happen yesterday,
yes.
That one, that child may not even have known, and they had to give up, and then here it is, you come along, like your dad said, why not you?
Yes.
So the blueprint, the foundation still reigns to this day, that you help make somebody else's day, and to see children think that, we think that they're paying any attention, but they do. They really do. And to see that child walk across that stage, I know that had to do something for you, like, oh my God.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's just me being in the community, and I hear people talking about our school or this and that, positive stuff.
Right.
When at one time, people focus on negative, and businesses come and, we have something special, right? And everybody deserves to be happy, right?
Yes.
And sometimes they have to be reminded, we have something to be happy.
We have a jewel here.
Amen.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why, I love people say, I don't take the title. It is what it is. But I go incognito when I go in the community. You catch me with a baseball cap on because I want to hear the pulse of what's being said. Even if it's something that, but at least we can grow from that. To say, okay, how can we make this better? How can we improve this? But when you hear that positive, It's like we must be doing something right. Well, I
Yes.
must be doing something
Yes.
right, even when we feel like we aren't doing enough.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
yes,
and you're out there. You have your ears to the ground. You
yes,
have it in the community, but
yes,
you're actually there listening. And that's why I was like,
yes.
"Where you at, Mr. Boy?" You like, "I had to do this," and I was over here, and I'm like, "Okay, you over at Marvel? You know what you're doing over there? You know." It's just those things, and you're out there, and you're listening, and it just, you're seeing the diversity.
Yes, yes.
You're seeing how everybody is included
Yes.
in what we call community. Why would it be called a community if not? You got to respect everybody's differences, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yes.
It's called respect, but it's a community because some you may not agree with it, but you go back and you think about it, it's like, I see what they're talking about now. And I think that we get caught up in the sauce when we look at personalities rather than really look at the purpose.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes can play on us as of how we shape the world.
Yes,
because everybody wants their opinion, want their opinion to be heard and valued and seen. But at the same time, let's give the same respect as if we wanted it, And I look at that, and you're making a profound impact. I mean, to be at that big university over there at Marvel Ellenwood, I don't see how I know you got a scooter because it just takes that much groundwork to be able to make that impact. And even when you're not talking about anything school related, you're talking about nationwide situations that's impacting our land and country in which we walk on, because we know that our children got to walk on the same land and country, that we're living in. And so I just think it's profound. I mean, I'm like, Mr. Boy, he's so silent and be moving around so much, but you have a story because you believe in the sense of what Dad taught you, the blueprint and foundation of community, being able to endure what civil rights really is, and to know that you don't have to have it in order to get in there, because what you do in your community will get you to those places that some people can't even get to.
Absolutely.
So I mean, Mr. Boyd, I thank you for just being here and just sharing, because we can go, we can go on, but we got to wrap this thing up. But it's just, just to know that your sense of community and pride in that and shaping lives is really, and I don't say this to front, it's really making a difference.
Amen.
When you thought that it wasn't, that put that tripod up again and let people know that, hey, we are now changing the narrative in this country and this county and land. So guest room. Again, this has been a great episode here with Mr. Boyd, known as Mr. B to me, and how he's changing the world through diversity, equity, inclusion, and the blueprint and foundation of his parents, and how they set the tone for him to do what he's doing. So again, on the guest room, we're back, and I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go ahead and subscribe, like, share, comment, and tell others about the guest room. And also check out Mr. B. We're going to run his credits back on this video, and you all are going to see how you can get in touch with him. Again, thank you so much for tuning into the guest room. Talk soon. Hello, everyone. It's Dr. D here. Not only am I an online talk show podcast host, I am an author. As you know, I've written my very first book, Cage in a Cubicle, Spiritual Lessons. But guess what? Your girl wrote another book. It's Time to Own Your Truth, a 31-day motivational. This book came about as of me sitting in a coaching class training. And there it stumbled upon me that I needed to own my truth and who I really am, my authentic self as to who I can really be and what I really am really about as of on a deeper level. And not only did this book come about through a training class, but it also came about through a supervisor who told me in the workplace to be intentional. And so that took me not only in the workplace, but it took me to think about what I needed to do as of what I wanted to do in life. And so therefore, this book came about. It's time, D, to own your truth. And this is, like I said, a 31-day motivational for anyone. And it's for 31 days to help you along the way that you may feel a little stumbled or a little stuck. This book will get you to where you need to be. So how you can purchase this book? Head over to Amazon and you can purchase the book there. I thank you in advance for your support and more so your purchase. Again, it's Dr. D with her second book, It's Time to Own Your Truth, a 31-day motivational. Thank you.